Welcome everyone to Reclamation, a beEmboldened initiative. I'm Naomi. I'm the founder and executive director here at beEmboldened. And I feel like people always say this. They're like, I'm so excited. And it's like, oh, everybody's so excited about everything they're doing. But I'm excited because I have two guests here today that I have not been able to sit down with simultaneously before. And I thought what was going on or what is going on right now with cover-up culture, things that are coming out in connection with Bethel, as well as the greater movement, New Apostolic Reformation movement. I thought it would be a really great time to sit down with the two other mentors on our team here at beEmboldened. So I'm one, Anna Kitko is another, and Therese Grieco is another. And so this is the first time that we're actually all sitting down together in person, which is even more special. And we're going to have a conversation about this among the three of us in order to let you in on some more of what we're seeing. I guess I could say kind of behind the scenes, because much of what's being said publicly right now is exposing the cover-up culture, which is so important. It's so needed. We are really happy that that's happening. While it is great, we're grieving as well as we see all of this come to light. But the reality is we've been seeing it behind the scenes for a long time. And we've been coming alongside people who have suffered from what is being exposed right now for a long time. And so we want to share more about what it looks like when someone has been harmed. And that is for people who have been targeted. It's for people who have a loved one who has been targeted, and also just for the greater, broader church who hopefully cares about what they're seeing get exposed right now. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So thank you for doing this with me. Thanks for being game.
Totally worth it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So even with the sketchy hotel that we're staying in.
That's welcome. Yes. So welcome.
It is so worth it. So again, as I mentioned in our introduction, many are reporting about this. And I want to give a nod first that many have been reporting about this stuff for a long time. It has just now reached some platforms with further reach. And so it's becoming more widely known. And I think garnering attention in a way where it's just harder to ignore it, where things have been ignored in the past. And I also want to make sure that we give show proper gratitude to the very bold and courageous witnesses who are coming forward as well. And again, who have been coming forward, some of them for a very long time, and some now being able to see, okay, maybe it's worth a shot of coming forward because people are actually paying attention. People are actually listening. So there are a lot of there's so much excellent work being done with people sharing about what is actually happening, their thoughts on what is happening. And again, I keep thinking like what is happening, but really it's like, well, what has been happening?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's just getting attention in a new way right now. And so with that, at beEmboldened, with us being on that healing and rebuilding side of things, as well as prevention, but also on the healing and rebuilding side of things, I wanted us to talk more on, well, what now really? What have we been doing, as well as what can we be doing moving forward? And what can we offer to people who are tuning in where it's like, this is their resource. My hope is that this will create a resource for people, whether they have been directly targeted themselves, they know someone who has been targeted, or again, they just care about this issue, which I'm so glad when people reach out who are like, I haven't been directly impacted, but I know this is real. Mm-hmm. I know this is a real issue. I know it is more prevalent than the attention it's been getting, which is true. Mm-hmm. And I want to learn how to be a part of the healing and part of the prevention. I want to be part of the solution. So I'm hopeful that we can do that today. That is our goal. So to get us started, focusing in on cover-up culture, that's going to be our primary kind of, point today that we're going to be circling around. What are some of the earmarks of cover-up culture across Christianity? And I want to explain that a little bit as to why I'm saying that way. I'm saying it that way because while it's coming out more so right now in regards to Bethel and again, the adjacent movement, but that Bethel is a part of, cover-up culture happens in every denomination and it happens all over the world. Okay. And it happens not even in an official denomination. I grew up not in an actual denomination, and there was cover-up culture within that. Of course, cults have cover-up culture. So this happens, it's all over the place. So while again, attention is focusing in one area right now, which is great. I think it needs to. I don't think we can tackle it all at one time. I do want to broaden this to cover up culture in general. So earmarks of that, what does cover up culture actually look like? What would people be? What dots would they be connecting for themselves in their own experience if they're wondering if they've been a part of it on any side of the dynamic, or if they are someone who's just wanting to be able to recognize it for others and be able to call it out?
One of the things that comes to mind for me right now is the concept of spiritual bypassing, or like the way that I've seen it is like when someone brings something forward, the automatic response is, well, you just need to forgive. Like you just need to, yeah, okay, we'll talk about it. You'll forgive them. And that's the end of the story. And that, even if that person really wants to forgive them, it bypasses everything that they have experienced or what they have, how it's impacted their life or even their foundation.
Yeah, deeply invalidating kind of things. The things that I'm kind of encountering on the regular is like this need to never lament, to never sit and grieve. And you and I, we know that grief is critical, and there's no way to treat grief except to sit in it and to know that that's okay. And so these church cultures that are, it's never said out loud, but like happiness is kind of the only state. So like if something icky does occur, it needs to be over with as quickly as humanly possible. That really delays the grief process even further. And it makes it so that the people who have been impacted feel like they're not worth grieving over. And they absolutely are. And the scriptures teach that in abundance, that the Lord himself is grieving. So I think it's the willingness to sit in the ick, that if that's never occurring in a church culture, I start to pay attention, right? Like why? We are in a broken world. We should be seeing seasons of lament on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
Especially even in the lives of our leadership. So when that's absent, I worry that there's some unhealth going on.
Yeah.
I think of it as like trying to quickly return to this state of homeostasis within the organization and taking a look at what that homeostasis has been and if it's something to actually be returned to. I think of this too, like when I'm talking with someone one-on-one, I'll talk about it in terms of like, we can be drawn to what's familiar. There's a comfort in what's familiar, but what's familiar can be harmful. And so we want to take a look at, okay, this is familiar, but is it actually good that it's familiar? Or is it harmful to me that it's familiar? And so when we're looking at a whole organization, there's this scramble of we've got to return to the homeostasis. It's like, but maybe we shouldn't, because the homeostasis allowed for this to occur. And I'm seeing organizations too quickly. Like, I thought of it this way the other day. It's like the person who's been targeted, who is coming forward, is treated more like an informant. And it's like, okay, you gave us this information now. And then they just like disappear off into the dark peripheral while everyone then jumps in and like handles it. And well, where did that person go? That person is not an informant. They weren't hired and paid and undercover to find this out, right? Like they have genuinely experienced and suffered harm. And we need to make sure that we are prioritizing their care. Now, we still need to figure things out, preferably with a third-party investigator,
Sure.
Yeah.
right? We need to make sure that person is immediately getting care and external from our organization so that they have the confidence that they can share anything that they need to share, how they need to share it, and get that unbiased support.
I think that's reasonable. Like kids, we see churches moving right into like the restoration. Like as soon as something is, we need to be in a mode of restoration. It's like, not necessarily, because if that actually just needs to be destroyed and left that way, that takes time and effort and emphasis. And we need to be thinking through and praying, getting an idea of what happened to begin with. Once those things have been put in place, which takes time, right? Then we can move into something like that. But the rapidity with which the response by these churches is to do what you said, homeostasis, or restore to what it was prior.
Yeah.
Anything to get back to there. Yeah, it's too fast.
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
too fast.
Yeah. And I think that spiritual bypassing, I mean, that is so significant in this. of just all the platitudes,
Mhm.
you know, that we say, don't say these things. And there's such an overlap too with grieving.
Yeah.
Having come from a background like in hospice and focusing on grief care and, you know, death and dying in general and that process, there's such an overlap with what we are all doing right now. And the be well in 3 days.
Yes.
Yes.
Be well in 3 days. You have 3 days of bereavement and
Yes.
you're supposed to be fine. And if you're not fine, then exactly what you said, Therese. Okay, well, you haven't forgiven, or you are, you're holding on to bitterness, you're being vengeful, you're, oh my goodness. And then we think about the effects of trauma on the brain, which people, when they're uneducated in it, which many are going to be, like the expectation, I know that none of us have the expectation that everybody knows all of this stuff.
Right.
It's a hope for people to recognize that they might not know some things and to get curious and to seek out resources so that they can be better informed in order to love well and in order to shepherd well. And what we are commonly seeing is one of the effects of trauma with memory, how it affects memory. And then the person is seen as lying because they're not recalling the full story right away when they are sharing it. They're recalling these different blips and snippets. And well, that's the effect of trauma on the brain and how we're designed. And so in time, yes, we will remember more things, different things will come into place. And then it's seen as, well, you're adding to the story and the person becomes untrustworthy. And I would compare that to like what we see in the 4 gospels, right? The synoptic gospels. Like there are differences that actually help us to know that it's true. And we see that in a trauma survivor as they are moving forward in their process. You want to add anything to that?
One of the things that I'm thinking of when you say that is like the effects on the brain and trauma is that's actually like good and helpful for the individual who has gone through all this pain and grief, because it's actually protecting them in a lot of ways through what they've gone through, and being able to say, okay, this is what I know right now. And as I work through my grief and pain and trauma, like I might be able to put more words to certain things. Maybe not, but maybe I will. And I also think in the same vein, when we're talking about grief and lament, the idea of incorporating grief into your life, meaning like when you're talking, Naomi, about like people want to go back to homeostasis. Well, like you said, it might not have been good. So that might not be the best thing to do. So having worked with people through lots of different types of grief, I would say integrating grief into your life, integrating the new experience into your life makes you a different person who sees things differently already in your experience. And so you're going to go forward with that, but you need time to integrate it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do that. The blaming the victim culture has been around for so long that one of the things that I'm seeing too is a compounding trauma to telling your story, because you're anticipating in the moment the concerns about what am I going to face once this is out there. And so the act of telling your story becomes traumatic in that sense. And that compounding trauma makes it, you start to lose your ability to articulate yourself, to even say, you know, what happened. And then the gaslighting that occurs almost immediately from a culture that has regularly been doing that with the kind of blame the victim mentality. We're walking into what I hope is a new era for the American church, which is that we're going to be more trauma informed just in general because of podcasts like this and because of these discussions. And so hopefully that entire culture will shift. But as it sits right now, as far as I'm concerned, that's still present. And so when they are telling their story, they are facing a reality that says, I am going to walk out of this room potentially way worse in my life simply for telling the truth than when I initially entered it.
Yes.
So as you said at the beginning, with the bravery of these individuals actually willing to come forward and giving a comfort to the other ones who are out there, because we know how many, because we were taking care of them all the time. And sometimes these groups never get exposed. They spend their whole lives never having anybody care for them. I I want to be mindful of that moment, and for churches to understand, like, once this person comes into your office to even say this is going down, like, that moment is a moment of trauma.
Yes.
So we have to be really, really careful how we treat that person. And that it doesn't become, well, let's poke at your story to make sure you're telling the truth. Like, that is a completely inappropriate way of, the initial reaction should not be, let's treat this like you're on the stand in a courtroom. To see if this is truthful. Like, just let them tell their story, slow everything down, care for the victim. And then we move together as a body of Christ to come around them to help them heal, right? We don't turn it into, we need to figure out exactly what happened, like there was a video camera in the room when all this went down.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people don't start, like, say this person has walked into your office and they are coming with something. I mean, they've already had to go through a lot of iterations of thinking through that to walk into the office. But then in that moment, I think the appropriate response is, are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Or even indeed just being like, you are not okay.
Yes, you are not okay.
What is there?
What can we do?
Yeah. How can we identify what needs are here? Because I'm lost, and I want you are the person that we care about here, the caregiving, regardless of what the details are of the story. Obviously, from a church perspective, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we would hope, obviously. So, well, and I'm glad you guys both brought this up, because when I was thinking about the informant thing a few minutes ago, that is something that I see happen, but it's a better case scenario than what we see happen most often, which is the putting someone on a stand instead.
Yeah.
And like making them prove it. Like that, unfortunately, tragically is more common.
Yeah.
Yes.
As they're having to immediately prove it. Like, okay, here's the evidence of it. And the ridiculousness of how scripture is manipulated, because this is like the idea of having 2 or 3 witnesses. It's like, who has 2 or 3 witnesses to sexual abuse? Like, how idiotic would the perpetrator have to be to let, well, they'd have to be as idiotic as Warren Jeffs, right? I mean, that's how dumb they'd have to be. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he even recorded it. So, I mean, he was just, we'll just leave that there. Because it's horrifying and heartbreaking. It's devastating, what he did to young women. And so when we're looking at the 2 to 3 witnesses, we're looking at earmarks of trauma. We're looking at these things that we're talking about, and we're seeing, wow, like you can tell this person has been affected.
Sure. Yeah.
And whatever the specifics are, this person needs support.
Yeah.
And that is where my head goes with anyone who comes to us at beEmboldened, is this person is in need of support. Whatever has happened, whatever the specifics are, I can jump in and start supporting them without knowing all of the details. And that's an encouragement I have for people, is you don't have to know all the details. As a loved one, you can come forward and support without asking for all the details. Just jump in where they're at and pick up where they're at, and be really humble and upfront of, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, so give me some feedback, please, as we go, if you would like to do so. But I'm just kind of jumping in. And that is something that I actually can sort of remember me transitioning as I've been aging along the way. I'm like, I remember in my 20s, it'd be like, oh my goodness, what happened? And you'd want to like seek to understand in order to then help. And there's some reality to that. Like, I'm not trying to say that we don't have to understand anything, but if I see someone's been harmed, I can just more of like, okay, what do you need? If you're able to identify that. And if not, here's some suggestions. Does this sound good? Or I'm just going to jump in and do this. Let me know if it's unwanted though. Like, please feel free to tell me. Because this is an idea I have. So it's not all on them to have to communicate what they're needing. And I don't have to know what they don't care to tell me at that time.
That's right.
Because it can be an additional trauma to be telling everyone what happened in order to get a need met.
Yep.
That is quite a burden that we're putting on the survivor. I also wanted to give a nod to when I first shared my story, because when I first shared it publicly in 2020, when beEmboldened came to be, it was under a different name at the time, but that was the first time that I had shared my story. Like, that was not like, oh, I've been doing this for a decade and now I'm just going to make a video about it. So there were people that I reached out to. I had to tell friends from 10 years. One was I knew her as a baby, and she always knew something was weird. But she had no idea like the depth and breadth of things. And so when I came forward and I was like, I'm going to do this video, I very much experienced what you talked about. I was dissociative again. Terror. Terror would be the accurate word for what I was experiencing. And I knew it was going to be open for anyone to say anything. And that was so scary and incredibly threatening. It felt threatening. There was no actual face of anyone. It was just the world was threatening as I was going to share this. Like, how are people going to respond? And had there not been some good, proper support in place for me before I went and did that, I would look back and say, Naomi, you shouldn't have. But I did have the support in place. Fortunately, I was a professional already, and I knew some things of like, I should have some things before I do this. And when we think about people who are coming forward now, or who have come forward in the past or will in the future, what are some of those things that are really good for them to have in place if they can? Now, again, I want to say for those who are considering this, you're like, well, this is me. I've been targeted. We're not saying like, make sure you check off this list before you do what you need to do. It's more of considerations for being kind to you, being patient and loving towards yourself as you're doing something that is incredibly difficult. What are some things that people can have in place?
Well, one of the things that I'm thinking of is I've had several people recently say, well, with all the stuff that's coming out, should I share my story then? And I always go back to, okay, let's hold on a second and think through like maybe some ramifications of sharing that story. Like, I think you're not going to be able to predict the future. Like, there's not, future predicting happening here, but in essence saying, like you said, what kind of support do you have around you? Do you know what happened to you? Before you ever go down this road of telling the story, do you know what happened to you? Are you aware of the potential, for lack of a better word right now, backlash that you could get from not just, people who knew you that didn't know your story, but from the organization or the people who are involved? Are you prepared for that? And by prepared, that could be a lot of different things. That could be identifying just your support people and what you believe might be happening. That could be also legally prepared. So, there's lots of different ramifications.
I have a ton of ideas kind of flood my mind. One of the ones that I've noticed works well for like some of my crew that has gone through this is that they chose, luckily it was in a therapeutic type environment where they first shared their story and where they got to identify some of the things, like put some language to what their experience was so that they can be understood. Because when you do go through a deeply traumatic experience, like take a sexual abuse situation, sometimes you don't even really know how to describe what happened. And the folks who have unfortunately been through a sexually violent type of interaction, you dissociate and you black out, and there are lots of things. And so just the rehearsal of telling your story with someone you feel safe with can be really life-bringing to that moment, as hard as it is, and then asking that person if they're willing to be with you while you go and do the big thing, go and have the actual meeting. I will regularly go with clients if they're to that point and they're like, I need to have an intervention of some sort in this church. One of the options, if I was the person that they initially shared with, I will offer and say, would you feel safer if I were just in the room with you? And that has been something that has been very, very helpful. Or like the best friend who you initially told, that sort of thing. I think that can be really helpful, that you don't have to do this alone. You can have a team with you that is just there as that reminder and that initial environment that your brain was in when you first were able to tell your story, and that your brain, your nervous system can see my support system is like right here with me.
Yeah, like physically there.
It's right here. Like that is an option.
Yes.
Like you can have a team. You do not have to be by yourself.
Yes. And I would not recommend being alone. I think
No.
there's several reasons to have someone there. It's also when we share, it's just, we're going to be flooded. And so even being able to recall after what was said and how it was said, and maybe some of the nonverbal messaging, like the nonverbal communication we picked up on, being able to process that through with someone can be so huge. And you're not going to do it with the person you went to. So to have that person beside you, you can do that with, and even remind you of, like, you did so well, and I just be encouraging and help you with some memory recall and things like that. And as well as being a witness to whatever happened in case it does not go as well as we had hoped it would go.
Yes.
I think that's really key too.
It's a good point. And with the witness thing, just because we know this, even hermeneutically, the witness thing in the scriptures is not a physical person. Like a witness is a piece of evidence. So like we can sit and go, okay, you have a lot of the markers, the markers of behavior of somebody who has been through this. And I want to tell you, I see that. Like, that's the first witness, right? It's complete. It's not that you have to have physical ones. And so with what you've just said too, the friend who was present for the aftermath of the event that saw the person being shaken up and was like, what's going on? And they couldn't tell me. Like, I was there to see that. I remember there's another piece of evidence, right? The witness. So you can have those people with you.
Yes.
And all of this is the if too, like you brought up, Therese, right? It's like if someone is coming forward, like if there is, because I at least don't recommend everyone do without considering the timing. And I too am a big fan of, let's look at worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And if you are like worst case scenario, I would still say this was worth it, then okay. And of course you get to choose. You don't need me to say, okay, or, don't need any of us.
Yeah.
But as far as that's the journey I would walk on with someone and say, okay, worst case scenario, would you still do this? Because worst case could happen. If you're like, yeah, I mean, I have absolutely companioned with people where they can't not, like, it's going to nag at them. They're going to be unsettled. Like it won't be as laid to rest as it can be without them doing it. Like it is very much a step that they need to take. And I respect that. And I also respect when it's no, like this at least isn't now. And sometimes we see people come forward decades later.
Yes.
And that's when they decide like, okay, this is going to be the time. There's been so much that they've gone through over that time. And one of the big ones is having a sense of what their story is. And that is I think it's another big misconception that gets in the way when people are qualifying those who have been targeted is how long it took them to come forward and their language that they do or don't have for it. And it's like, you can ask me what happened, but if I don't know what happened, I can't tell you very well.
Right.
So, and if I don't have a point of reference for it, then I really don't even know where to start. Spiritual abuse language is just really getting out there more. We regularly have people reach out to beEmboldened who are reaching out and saying, can I just talk with someone for like one session or two? Because I started to laugh because I'm like, they typically stay longer, but they're like, can I just start an initial conversation anyway to say, was it that?
Yeah.
Like, was it spiritual abuse? Because contrary to some popular belief, people are not wanting to just throw this around. No, it is heavily weighted for them if they are going to use this card, so to speak. Like they are wanting to say it only if it's true. And they're not even wanting to say it when it is true. So this is not like everyone's just like calling spiritual abuse
about it.
willy-nilly. No, this is a very heavy, it's heavy for them. And they recognize that. And so they are exercising caution in what they're saying. And it is significant for them to be able to come forward. So yeah, absolutely. Like, how are we as the church, as, all of the trigger words I could use here, community, brothers and sisters in Christ, how are we actually able to support one another? And so I think that is a really important consideration for people.
Sure.
So when we're thinking about, I want to circle back and kind of just recap some of our points that we made as far as what cover-up culture can look like. So we see things like spiritual bypassing, we see rushing through a process. Anything else that you'd want to add to this? Silencing.
There's whoever is being accused of this abusive moment not having any framework set aside for them to just like take a sabbatical for a second from leadership while this is being discussed, not just for their own sake, but just for the church's sake.
Sure.
So like treating in an interaction like this, like, hey, I've been abused. Here's what's going on. Their life's been interrupted. They're doing this big thing of coming to say this. They're not getting anything out of it.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? Like this is a big moment. Church is not having a framework where to pause the leadership of that person while this is being discussed and investigated further. I've noticed that, like, I wish I saw more of we have a pause button for our leaders.
Yes.
So that can't continue that like mass, like, oh, okay, so this person was abused at X time. And then the congregation finds out, well, I was at this potluck with this person, with my daughter, who was now vulnerable for this massive span of time, right? That is making the potential trauma and the abuse there of just the thought for the rest of the congregants that I could have been in danger or I could have been subjected to something. We're expanding the trauma by not having a pause button for the leaders when something like this gets thrown out there. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like in a pause button, even in terms of like where I've seen it done really well is when somebody comes forward and like if the church has a good board or they'll say, okay, this has been brought forward. We are going to put the people who are accused on administrative leave.
Yeah.
While we do a third party investigation that has nothing to do with us, like, and that's also saying like, they're not saying right there, well, this person is guilty. It's not that.
Right.
It's more like, hey, let's everybody pause while we figure out what actually is going on.
Right.
Yes. And make sure, of course, that if this person has caused harm, they immediately have access removed to people.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that is so like mind blowing to me to consider that doesn't happen. Like the immediate is we need to remove the possibility.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to press pause. We're going to remove the possibility.
Yep.
And then as we see things kind of continue along in opposition to how we're describing it going right now, of like administrative leave and getting the person support and all of these things, we can then see, of course, NDAs come into play. And I do want to touch on that briefly because non-disclosure agreements in the church, they're completely incongruent with one another.
Yes.
They are. That's ridiculous.
Yes, it is ridiculous. And instead of allowing the person who is targeted the confidentiality that they need, respecting their confidentiality while allowing them the sense of agency, that's their own ability to make decisions for themselves. That is so important after someone has had their sense of agency robbed from them in an abuse situation, right? Like we need to be very careful and help restore that and encourage it in them. And so an NDA is further taking it from them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is incredibly deeply harmful. And it also is incredibly irresponsible on behalf of the church.
It's the ick factor for me is the trying to control the flow of information and communication for the natural flow. Because like a church is supposed to be this radically transparent environment, right? Because we are the people who understand sin and the brokenness of the world. And we're not there to manage it. We're there to meet people where they are and minister to them. That's the whole point. So as soon as the natural flow of communication through just human interactions is trying to be controlled by the higher ups so that the story doesn't get out or so that people can't discuss or so that people can't identify, like, oh my gosh, I went through that with that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was abusive. Like I just wasn't going to say anything. Or, oh yeah, that person was actually really creepy with me in a bathroom one time and I let it go. Like that the natural caregiving that can come out with the free flow of communication through a congregation is really helpful. So to have any type of leadership cover-up culture trying to control that narrative, I get the ick.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yes.
It absolutely gets in the way. And I'm sure this is a point of it if people who are doing it intentionally are honest about it. It definitely does get in the way of someone being able to connect dots. And I had this experience in my early 30s where I was talking to a family member who shared with me something about my dad in relationship to another family member, where it just, like, my head could have gone around. I'm like, oh my goodness, everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there were so many things that as a child I didn't know what to do with, but I knew they were off and like icky off, but I didn't know what to do with them. And so they just kind of, got stored. And then as an adult, they just kind of stayed there. And so when this was said, it all came back and it all connected. I was like, oh my goodness, this makes so much more sense, not only for myself, but it also increased my understanding and in ways, therefore, my empathy for other people who had been connected with their family and some of what they had gone through, where I didn't get it in the way that I was able to get it because that piece of information was shared. So that experience I was then kind of went back and was grieving all over in ways, but it enabled me. It's like they handed me this gift of being able to further heal.
Yes.
And that would have been kept from me. And these family members would have never done that. They didn't know what I didn't know. But when it's done intentionally, you are further harming the person. You're further wounding people. And there are other people who are walking around with this, like, I don't know. And you're withholding the opportunity for them to know and to be able to heal. That is so unethical.
Yep. Yes. And it's siloing information. And it's also like, when I think of NDAs in general, I think of corporations, like you're trying to protect like a patented, system or something. Yes. Yeah. Right. So it's like, I created a telescope and I'm trying to, keep that, information in house. But when I hear about NDAs in regard to churches or any type of like organization that's not a corporation, having, intellectual property,
right.
I think something's wrong. Like, I don't think, oh, that's great. I think, oh, there's something wrong. I don't know what the something wrong is, but I think there's something wrong. I think information's being siloed.
Yeah. A church shouldn't have a brand that needs to be protected, right? Yes. On the flip side of this, meaning like on the darker side of this, so we're focusing on the victims right now and their healing, but also something that I think is important to point out is the fact that the design of an NDA and its execution in a type of like a church setting is literally ringing the dinner bell for wolves.
Yes.
Because what you've just done is make it where the wolf claims, the predator claims, I'm called by God. The brand is me here. And everybody's going to protect the brand, which is me.
Yes.
And I will be able to do this over and over and over again. And even if I'm exposed, if we can go there, we have these obvious predatory oriented individuals who can then go quietly under the NDA, can kind of leave that environment and then just show up later
somewhere else.
And no one has any idea because that information was not something that was accessible to the public so yeah, they can just hop. Congregation can just consume sheep. Yeah. So it's the whole thing's a nightmare.
Yes.
I do not recommend.
Yes.
Well, and let's touch on what we then can see when someone's going to give a concession anyway. So that can go in conjunction with an NDA. Someone can give a nod to like mistakes were made kind of idea while still then not getting specific on the mistakes that were made because they're using an NDA. An NDA is also not required to silence a survivor.
Sure.
I mean, the intimidation, the taking everything from them, the threats that can happen. I mean, just there's so much at play because the organization is still holding such a degree of power and influence and authority.
Sure.
And it's not, I don't want anyone who's listening and watching, an NDA is an immediate red flag. Yes, I would not go to a church where they have NDAs. Without an NDA, we could solve all of these problems at play. Not every church is, of course, utilizing them.
True.
So when someone does and say, okay, I'm back into a corner, I'm going to issue what they're calling an apology. The ones I've seen as of late, I'm thinking of them as concession marketing videos because that's really what they are. It's like, okay, I'm gonna concede that I am so servant-hearted. I am just striving so hard for the Lord and the gospel and the mission and all of you that I failed somewhere. And so please please understand that that's why. And to that, I would say first and foremost, well, then you're being irresponsible and you're not actually adhering to scripture because you should be getting proper rest. Okay.
Mhm.
So I still don't agree
Yeah.
with the reasons that you're saying this happened. I don't actually think they are the reasons it happened. People can be tired and not abuse other people. But even if it is what happened, you still need to be removed and you got to reevaluate everything about how you're doing everything. But I want to talk about those for a second. Again, these concessions, really, they're not true apologies. Have you seen some of the ones recently?
Yes.
Todd White.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was he thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was not good. They feel, number one, it minimizes the impact of the trauma severely, especially anytime that like it was a mistake, as though like I just stumbled into accidentally behaving this way chronically for 25 years, lying to people. Like, no, it wasn't a mistake. This was a moment of grievous sin.
Yes.
And it's pathological usually.
Mm-hmm.
And that really needs to be addressed. And for any other kind of response besides, I have severely done something, I am going to take myself down, right? Any type of like awareness of ego where they say, nope, I might be harmful further, so I'm just going to voluntarily do this.
Yeah.
That would be what I would expect of authentic repentance, right?
Yeah.
So when I don't see that voluntary, I'm going to step down, I immediately go, we probably have some cover-up culture going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and when I think of an apology, just in general, just an apology that we're making to anyone, I think you tell me what happened specifically, what you did wrong. Then you say you're sorry in a very like repentant way. And then you tell me what you're going to do to fix it or what you're going to do in the future. Like in order so this doesn't occur again. That's just like basic apology,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so when someone stands up and says, because not just Todd White, like I'm thinking of Bill Johnson's.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know if that was apology really. It was more like, this is why I probably, made some mistakes. And I'm like, we need to know what happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
making something virtuous into like, this is my weakness.
Yes.
I'm too kind and gentle.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yes. It was like that. And I'm thinking, well, and then he even said in that, he said, and I think that's a good way to live. And I'm like,
Not repentant.
No, I don't think that's what we need to be talking about right now.
Yeah. You're touching on something really, really important, I think. And that's that I maybe we've lost a sense of contrition being a critical component to this, and that the true repentance is marked by contrition, which is this acceptance of, no, I deserve to walk out in a world that says, yeah, what you did was wrong. And yes, I need to hear that over and over again. And I need to accept that is now a part of the narrative of my life. We've all been there. And contrition, when somebody comes to you and is just like, they are demonstrating contrition, you're almost like, stop, it's okay, I forgive you. Like you desire that. When contrition is absent, it's like, was that real? Was that genuine? Am I now obligated to call that genuine because it technically happened? Like, no.
Yeah.
All we're doing is we're pressuring the victims to stop talking about what happened to them. And I think that it worries me when that vibe is present in a church that basically says, like, okay, you've told your story. They've said they're sorry. Now we don't talk about it anymore. Like we've jumped through the hoops we needed to, and it's over. Like, no, that's not how contrition works.
No,
at all.
Absolutely not.
At Exhibit A, shutting down the Facebook group
Oh my
for
gosh.
them to be able to have conversations.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, they're controlling the narrative because they don't want this to come up again. They want to go quiet. They want to have everything kind of, hopefully people will start to forget. We can move on. The next thing will happen. The next prophetic utterance will come. The next revival, whatever, and hopefully we'll move on.
Yeah.
So it's hoping that we'll move on, right? And making sure that we cut off anytime people don't want to move on. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But going about it in such a way that it's being presented as, well, we really care and we're wanting to make sure we don't miss anything. And we're wanting to make sure that for anyone who is struggling to acknowledge, maybe even, which is first step, or maybe you feel the gut feeling, you feel the sense of this is off, but you're struggling to act on it, to give it any credence in your life, please pay attention to that.
Yeah.
There's quite possibly something to it.
Yes.
Anytime I have not paused and paid attention to that, I have wished that I did. So, and that can be a variety of things that we're paying attention to. But I think for those of us who are survivors of various forms of abuse, we can be quick to dismiss that sense that we have because we tell ourselves stories about ourselves. We all tell ourselves stories. And unless we're narcissistic, we tend to make them unfavorable to ourselves. So we can say like, oh, I'm too much, or I'm just being too sensitive, or, oh, I'm just so broken, or, all of these things. And in reality, your brain has found a match. Your brain is saying, oh, this is familiar.
Yeah.
Something about this. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And my spidey senses, so to speak, are going off. Maybe it's the spirit nudging me. Maybe it's just the way I was designed to be able to catch things. Whatever this is, it is worth pausing and investigating and giving it some consideration. At least slow down.
I like what you said there. At least slow down. I often tell people, let's slow it down and slice it thinner. Like not like it doesn't have to be so overwhelming. Let's slow it down, slice it thinner, and be like, okay, what is that thing that just is like, it's almost like, I don't even know if this is a real word, but it's almost niggling at you, where you're like, oh, something's not right there. And you know what, when you pause, it doesn't mean like pause for 15 minutes. You could pause for a week or two. You don't even need to put a timeline on it for yourself, do what you think is necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. And the ability to do that, I think cover-up culture, a critical component that I'm seeing too, is like that type of like discussion going to somebody else and being like, I don't know what I'm feeling or seeing, but my intuition is really bothering me. They'll couch that as gossip and say, you can't do that. And that is not what gossip is. You telling your own story and asking for help discerning is not gossip.
No.
And so that kind of, if you're seeing that kind of vibe coming through of like, oh, you can't do that. You have to know or not know, and trust and not trust. Like, that's not how trust works anyway. And the Holy Spirit's all powerful. He absolutely can help you intuit as a member of the body of Christ in your sacred duty, in your space, to work through and discern what's happening, that you're showing humility trying to do that.
Yes.
So all of that really matters. And remembering that you're not, us as individuals, we are peers in the body of Christ with the pastor and with the leadership.
Yes.
They are not above, and we are not like somehow devalued down here.
Yes.
Meaning that your intuition in the moment is of equal merit to whatever the leadership is saying happened. It doesn't, remember that you are absolutely worth the time to discern, because that's so valuable for the rest of the members of the body of Christ who we need with you, right? You're not just nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That dismissing that happens so often because of this, whether it's actual positional authority, as in there's a title for it, this person is the senior pastor, or they're, on the elder board or whatever it may be, or if it's just something that's perceived, like, wow, I really look up to this person in my church. I think that they are wise in the decisions that they make, and I want to glean from them. And so I've kind of given them that in my own eyes, and recognizing the authority on behalf of those who have it. It is so important for us to recognize the influence that we have over others and to steward that in a God-honoring way. It's important as mentors for beEmboldened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we start out in conversations with people, letting them know we don't have spiritual authority over you. We don't have any kind of authority over you. The way I phrase it is I'm like, I'm the help you have hired to come in.
Yeah, I work for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I work for you.
Yes.
And I still have my ethics, and I still have, but I work for you, and I'm the hired hope that, the hired help that I hope will be treated
also
well.
the hired hope.
The hired hope. I might also be the hired hope, but I'm like that. I hope, you treat well. So, but that is that is something we can say, but we then have to live it out,
Yeah.
right? We need to not try to take over someone's sense of agency. We need to not be telling them exactly what they need to think and exactly how they have to behave. We're offering things. We're offering things that we're observing, observations that we've made, considerations that we might say, I would really encourage considering this because I think this is at play. And I think here's how it would serve you. Here's why I think it might be accurate and how this is going to intersect with your life. Often comes up with scripture. Like, hey, even if someone is like, you know what, I don't know about the Christian thing anymore. I don't know where I stand with that. Is it okay if we look at scripture when you're bringing it up? Because I want you to know what is versus is not in there.
Yes.
Or at least for you to be able to consider for yourself what is versus is what is not in there.
Yes.
And giving them the opportunity to do that. And people tend to be very open to it because the concern there is the Bible getting blamed for what that person did.
Yes.
And even stepping away from my hope as a Christian for a moment, which I'm not, but like in this conversation, I don't want that person to let that person, I don't want the survivor to let that person off the hook and then go back
Yeah.
or be open to something that is similar because they think the Bible was the issue. So it's helping people properly categorize where the accountability goes as best as we can.
Yes.
And that is really important to avoid revictimization. And I say that with wanting to also ensure that I'm clear. The abuse is always on the abuser. It's not on the person who was targeted.
Correct.
What I find empowering though, as a fellow survivor, is there are things that I can pick up on where I am able to do something or say something, maybe it's just remove myself in order to have more of a sense of agency, of protection of my personhood moving forward. And that's something I'm grateful for. And again, I find that empowering, not disempowering.
Yes.
It is a right that I have and the Lord gave it to me.
Yes. Yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
What are some common struggles that we're seeing among survivors of cover-up culture? What are some of the things we're seeing them face as far as moving forward in their healing, not just the coming forward, not going past that moment, ongoing recovery?
Yes. I like to make my crew aware of parasocial interactions because that's not something that we talk about very often, but I think it's really critical, especially seeing what we're seeing with cover-up culture being a phenomenon that occurs across the board. But right now we're seeing it in the really, really big celebrity type dynamics. And with a celebrity type leader, you are going to have naturally parasocial interaction, which just means you are going to experience in your body, if you are close or regularly following this pastor in particular, or this leader, or this YouTuber, an interaction that is one-sided, meaning you are going to feel in your body like you know the person, like you're in relationship with the person. You're going to feel the sensation of intimacy and like vulnerability, and that like they understand you, especially if they're speaking to topics that we're already feeding you. Right. And so you have a genuine sense, and this is a normal reaction by a nervous system, to have this feeling of relationship when actually that person is not in relationship with you at all. Like they don't know you. They have not had interactions with you. And so the awareness that occurs and that those feelings are totally expected, but are actually unhelpful in how you assess yourself, except in a form of awareness. And so I say this to say, sometimes my crew will feel a need to protect a leader because they feel like they've been in this relationship, right? And so they feel like they're doing something that is deeply harmful to their friend or to their friend's life, or to like whatever the vision is of the church that's building and all those things. And we want to be aware that we need to back up to a point that says, well, actually, if we remember that maybe that interaction is more parasocial than authentic, if you can keep that in mind, does that change how you would respond in truth? Right? Because as Christians, we're supposed to make sure that we're not bearing false witness. And that's a responsibility we all carry. So as you're assessing yourself, keep in mind identifying how many of these feelings towards the celebrity that you're having are parasocial versus authentic, and then reassess. to give you a little bit more discernment about what to do, how to move forward with your story if you have been victimized. If you're wanting to intervene on behalf of a friend, like, hey, actually, is this person really your spiritual father? Which creeps me out, that title anyway, because like we have a spiritual father. It's our Father in heaven. You don't need another one. Just keep to let the Lord be it. That kind of dynamic where you feel like I don't want to assess what happened to me further, but it's bothering me and it's affecting my life because I don't want to come to a conclusion that says, I need to speak out, or I need that kind of like the self-dampening, right? The muting of the self when the self is trying to express like, I was horribly abused. It's affecting me. It's coming out in things like functional neurological disorder, which we're seeing all the time. And now they're having new hospital bills as a result of this trauma that they're not even able to call trauma yet because of that parasocial interaction awareness. So that's something I would definitely I would love to get more out there, to have it be a broader discussion.
That makes me think of a couple of different things. First, I'm just going to use first person as an example. So something that I recognized in myself as a vulnerability was, and I like to talk about that with people, we all have vulnerabilities, and some may be the same through our whole lifetime. Others are going to change. They could be circumstantial. They could be developmental. We all have them. And so having awareness of what our own are can just be really helpful. It's good information to have. So for example, I knew that two things growing up with having a so-called prophet as a father, where this was like spiritual father for sure idea, also biological father. Yes, so kind of double, really feeding into that idea. I knew that I was used to having someone in authority over me like that to help me make decisions and to need approval. So I would go through my life still being like, I need someone to be seeking approval from. And who is that person going to be? And so that put me at risk for anyone really to want to jump into that if they had the right personality and they wanted to go for it, right? Because people can also recognize vulnerabilities at times in others, especially if they're predators. They're looking for those vulnerabilities and they want to prey upon them.
Right.
And so I recognized that in myself and I was like, okay, I have to be cautious here of me allowing someone to step into that role. And exactly what you were saying, allowing my Father in heaven to be that father instead. It also played out through the loss of my mom, where I was then, that was such a loss. And so there were women in my life who were trying to step forward and kind of be that person instead. Fortunately, in a way, anyway, with that one, I was less apt to allow someone into that place. And so that is actually what keyed me into the other one. So I just want to share for anyone, knowing that we have vulnerabilities, again, that's normal for all of us. Like that's not a bad thing. That's humanity.
Yes.
But yes, being able to recognize those and then be able to say, what am I going to kind of have some extra caution in regards to? Is there also healing available to me in ways? Like, are there things that I can take a look at where I can move forward and feel more confident in this area? Feel like it is less of a vulnerability than it was before. That might be something that's available to me as well. And the other thing that has come up that you reminded me of is the difference between fitting in and belonging. And fitting in means I have to be like you. Like we have to actually agree on everything. We have to have the same interests. We have to look the same. And that's not going to happen because I suck at eyeliner. Okay. So it's not going to work. So do I fit in as in, am I just like you? No, I'm not just like you, but do I belong? Am I accepted in this sense of community with these other people, with the differences that I have intact?
Yes.
And belonging is what I want to go for. Fitting in is not the goal. And I think we see that come up with other survivors as well, where it's like, okay, we're groomed to fit in, like whether it's true or not, whether there's any authenticity in that presentation of ourselves or not. It's okay. I need to look like I fit in. And so being able to back away and say, no, how am I uniquely designed in the Lord's image? Because there are uniquenesses in my design. And then how do I engage from there with the world so that I have a sense of true belonging. And true belonging is incredibly freeing.
Yes.
I believe that is what we're actually designed for, is for a sense of belonging and not to be fitting in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
Preach.
yeah, I think that's important what you're saying. And also, like, I'm also seeing people who they actually are closer to some of these people who have been pointed out as abusers.
Mhm.
And so they're really struggling with, like, how did I not see this? Like, it's like the confusion and the chaos in their mind. How did I not see this? And sometimes the simplest answer is the answer, which is they didn't want you to see it. They purposely hid all that because they were trying to do something that wasn't good.
Yeah, that's why this is so scary, and that's why, you know, I desire the kind of therapeutic element in this is to make sure I, like, say to the people who are guilty of spiritual abuse, like, one of the things why we can be so serious and so this is such a big deal is because we know that the people who that have been guilty of spiritual abuse, the ones that said, "Oh my gosh," and repented and
Yes.
were like, beautiful.
Yes.
They were not predatory.
Yes.
But when we see cover up culture, we all go, that's predatory now because of the amount of manipulation and work it takes, the amount of cognitive effort it takes for someone to be chronically and pathologically lying to save face.
Yes.
Like, as soon as we see repentance and contrition
Yes.
about
Yes.
abuse, because we've all been guilty of abusing someone.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between the person who is the Christian that's I'm devastated,
Yeah.
and it ends truly because they're believers and they're not predators.
Yes.
It's the predators that do the covering up because they desire to stay in that space. It's the authentic Christian that goes, that was never my space. The celebrity is Christ. I'm not trying to be
Right.
in that spot.
Right.
And I back up immediately. So I think that's the gravity of this type of discussion, really, like, if we can remember that this is not about the sweet little old lady that's from another generation that, you know, said something in a Bible study that was really inappropriate. And we're all just like, oh no, like, we're not talking about her, because when we went to her and said, that was really not appropriate, and she went, I'm devastated. You know, that's not the type of person we're talking about,
No.
despite the fact that that was spiritually abusive. We're talking about an entire engine that has been designed to perpetuate abuse before the predator.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that example too, of like the idea of like, we've all abused, like we've all said something without knowing what we were saying, and then had to be educated on what the issue was. And like, oh my goodness, yes, that's so not what I intended.
Yeah.
And so not a heart posture of like, I am trying to hurt someone, a mistake, a true mistake where it was accidental. And it's like, oh wow, we're open to learning. And we want to then apologize for that. And we are really going to be changing how we talk about something in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. Absolutely. That's just relationships.
We learned from our error.
Yeah, exactly. That's relationships. That's learning. That's growing. That's sanctification, right?
Right.
It's becoming more like
Exactly.
Jesus. So yeah, when we see people who are genuine versus people who are giving these, again, concession marketing statements that are really just playing on people's sympathies is what that's about. It's further manipulation
Yeah.
is exactly
Yes.
what it is.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess one of the things too I'm thinking is like confusion and chaos that people who are abused go through, especially if they are close to the abuser, you know, whether that's like the pastor, you know, someone in leadership, or someone that they knew, you know, in that organization or that congregation they saw, like you were saying earlier, Naomi, that they saw as an authority in their life. And they're just like, why didn't I see it though? Why didn't I see, you know, I get that question a lot, you know, why didn't I see it? And it's like, well, because they didn't want you to see it because they're being covert.
Yeah. It was
Right.
designed for you not to see it. You didn't fail. This isn't an issue of naivety.
Right.
Yeah. You walked into something that was designed to target you under the auspices that you're in an environment that would never in 1,000 years be something where that would be there.
Because most of us go into churches thinking, people in general, hopefully, walk into churches thinking this is a safe place.
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know? I think if I'm being honest, I don't walk into a church thinking that anymore.
Mhm.
But
Right.
I think
Neither do
that
I.
I think that most people just, generally think this is a safe place. So there's not, maybe that in itself can be a vulnerability, like you were talking about earlier, of like, oh, I'm not checking things as much here.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And we can go into a church and ultimately find that it's a healthy,
Yes,
imperfect.
absolutely.
I'm like, let's look for imperfectly
Yes.
healthy and not abusive.
Yes.
Okay. And yes, and we can realize this is a generally safe environment, but we are learning that over time, right? As we're getting to
Yes.
know the environment, we're getting to know people. And we're also staying alert that that could change.
Yes.
That can change. And so I am going to continue to assess and to pay attention and check things and just kind of that due diligence that I now take on for myself. That's something that, again, I have found to be empowering and give me an increased sense of safety in a space because I have learned that I can be safe for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I had to learn because I went through well, how do I trust others? Well, how do I trust me? How do I trust God? Who is he? What are boundaries? Are those a thing? Are those okay? Like, are those biblical? And all of the different elements that we go through when we have survived some form of spiritual abuse. And so landing in a place of like, yes, there can be a sense of safety, but I'm not giving my safety. And I want to be, again, this is a journey that I have been on. I want to be cautious if anyone's like, well, I didn't do that. And that's why this happened. No, it happened because of everything else we're talking about.
Right.
It happened because bad people did bad things. That's
Yes.
why it happened. I have now learned because I know that bad people exist and they are trying to do bad things amidst the really good people who are trying to do really good things and are giving genuine apologies and doing kind things. I have learned that I can better safeguard myself in ways that I didn't have accessible to me before because I either couldn't because I was young or I just didn't know as I got older.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to them not wanting us to know, while we are then trying to process what we are seeing, when we don't have that framework for it, when we are saying, oh, I'm going into a church, like this is supposed to be healthy, this is supposed to be safe, the easiest answer is that we're wrong.
Yes.
That's the easiest answer is, well, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Again, if we're not narcissistic, that is most often the answer we're going to go to is like, oh, well, I'm the problem. And so then it's okay. Well, and then this makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense if I'm the problem. And
Yes.
so I remove me from the equation. And now all of this, okay, makes sense again, because we are recognizing something that is out of place. Like this is out of place. This doesn't make sense here. How do I make it make sense?
Yes.
And that is the simplest answer. And so I would caution against the simplest answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be the simplest answer. In this case, it's probably not.
Yeah.
Life in general, sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one. But in this case, no, it is probably that you are seeing contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
You are seeing,
Dissonance.
yes, you're seeing that dissonance. You're seeing that incongruence. And it is really, really good that you're recognizing it. And let's go ahead and key into that. And again, we're going to slow down. We're going to pause. And that can take as much as it takes
Yes.
in order to make sure that we are continuing forward in a way that is safe and healthy for us and for
Yes.
others.
And a lot of times I refer back to like when the Bible talks about wolves in sheep's clothing, and I say, do you know what wolves in sheep's clothing look like? Sheep. And that's the whole thing. So it's like when people say, well, it must be me, I must be the one who's wrong. I'm like, let's step back and look at it all again, and let's see if there might be something that looks like sheep, but might not be sheep.
Yeah. Let's run a thought experiment.
Yes.
Right. We're going to sit together and let's see if we can see if there is an incongruence, right? Or like that behavior is not sheep-like.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many other behaviors are not sheep-like?
Yes.
Let's make a list,
Right.
and we're not going to attend that small group.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. We're gonna just observe for a while.
Yes.
That's okay to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I often say to people, like, I tend to be in any new situation, I tend to be an observer, and that's okay. Like, if I'm going to go sit in a group of people, I'm going to observe how the dynamics work in that group of people before I jump in with both feet.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm.
For sure. Yeah. So a similar picture that I use is like, as much as it's fun to jump off of cliffs, cliff divers definitely like explore the
Yes.
water for a long time before they ever dive in. So like you can slow down regardless of whether or not they're super excited about you being there and they want you to join this and this and this and this and this. And they want you to like, what is the vibe in the fall? Circles are better than rows or whatever, where everybody gives exactly the same sermon, to get everybody to join a small group. Like, that's fine. You can join small groups. It's okay. But especially people who have been through what we've been through, like you also do not need to do that.
Yes.
You can go as slowly as you need or at all.
Right.
You're free to just go, I pass.
Yes.
And that's okay. You're not lesser Christian.
Yes.
And as someone is unpacking all the, like we're talking about people who have been harmed and traumatized, like as they're unpacking all of that, even still to this day, even though I feel like I say this a lot to people, they're like, I can't pick up the Bible right now, or I can't set foot in a church. That's okay. Like, absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, I just think your nervous system is like on fire. So that makes complete sense to me. But also, like, do we know what happened to us? It's also going back to that.
Yeah, right. Elijah got to go to a cave for a while, right? Maybe this is your cave era.
Yes.
I'm down.
Yeah.
We can do that. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is incredibly uncommon in abuse situations for people to be told, oh, the solution is to go back into an environment that looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like if I was sexually assaulted in a dark corner somewhere, I wouldn't be told you have to go back to dark corners and sit there in order to heal. That would be some wild exposure therapy, right? That is not recommended. Not recommended. Don't do that, please. Yeah. And yet that's what I would be told, of course, in regards to the church. And I get it. I understand it. There are other ways in which we can commune with the Lord and we can commune with others as we're able to do so. And that can look like I started by, I'm going for a walk, and it was as simple as, Lord, I know that you're here.
Mm-hmm.
I am acknowledging that you're present. I'm generally okay with it. Like that was my starting point. And that's okay. In fact, I think it was really good in retrospect. I'm like, that was a great starting point. And so I think we're segueing into what I wanted to ask next, which was what considerations would you have for the loved ones of those who have been targeted, or for the greater church who's like, I care. What should I have in mind? And I think this is one of the main points, is what they know to be the solution, which I agree can be a really good, beautiful thing at some point. I wanted to have, and I still do, it just looks different for me now, because I'm able to. I wanted to also have a relationship with the Lord by reading his word. I wanted to also have a relationship with the Lord by corporately worshiping with other believers. That was inaccessible to me for a period of time in very real ways. There was a time where, anyone who has been through spiritual abuse, your heart's going to go out to me with this story. And I received that. Thank you. My husband was on staff at a church. Now, when a husband's on staff at a church, what does that mean for the wife? What does that mean for this wife? It ain't happening, folks. I'm going to come when I can come. But I did feel the pressure. Yeah. There was one service where we're at church, and this is, oh my gosh, it's awful. Like, it's embarrassing to remember to a degree, but yet it makes so much sense. I was at the back of the church, literally curled into a ball on the floor, weeping. I couldn't even stand and fake it anymore. I was so out of my body. Really, I was in a way in my body, but I can see myself from the corner of the room as I talk about this. I would know I was dissociative. And it would continue for days. And so this was the point where my own support professional agreed with me. I was like, I feel like something in my brain, like there's a really tight rubber band, it's about to snap. Yeah. And I just have the sense of, I'm not coming back if this happens. Like, I really can't do this. Yeah. And he was like, I agree with you. Yes. I'm concerned you're going to end up with more than one personality if you continue to pursue this. Like, I really think you need to back away. That was not the answer for me. I could not be a part of a church in any kind of way that was going to be healthy for me or healthy for them. And they were not abusive, just side note. Right. They weren't. Like, lovely people. Right. but it just was not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And there were also some things I sensed like, well, they're growing an organization and are in any way they need people. I couldn't be needed
Yeah.
for the organization. I couldn't have that. That was
Yeah.
not going to be a good option.
Yeah.
So that is something I want to share again for those who are loving someone like me or loving someone who's been a part of cover-up culture. There are elements of our lives as Christians that are not going to be available for any kind of, I mean, for me, it was like 10 years before I could read the Bible. So it can be an extended period of time. That person has not necessarily turned their back on God. They're just not engaging in those specific spiritual disciplines at this point in time.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
And that we can do that. Like
Yes.
you can curate, like we are free. The Lord loves you. Those were never intended to be shackles,
Right.
right? It doesn't mean you're out of community because you see that like, oh, you don't be out of community with the body of believers, right? And you'll hear that's thrown out to folks who have been through something like this. That is not what that scripture means.
Yes.
Like we are the body of Christ, like we are the church. And in that sense, you are absolutely okay if you are going out and being all around other believers, not doing churchy looking things. That is a fellowship, right? You do not have to be bound by this idea that you have to walk into a building labeled church that does whatever is the cultural norm of the day, which will change, right? Whatever the brand is, like remember that that's the way the scriptures have that set up is that we are the church and that those interactions are now a church oriented interaction and we can be curated and you're worth the curation. Yeah.
One of the things I like to say to people a lot of times around grief, but this is also true with trauma, just in general, is like to the loved ones, like sit in the hole with them. Like they're in a hole, go sit in the hole with them. You don't have to have words, but nothing, bring some food, sit in a hole, like kind of thing.
I love that.
And just be there, like be there. And then if there's a conversation that happens, great. But if there's not, that's okay too. And, and it could even be like you're sitting in the hole and then you guys get up and go for a walk, and then you come back and sit in the hole again.
That's the perfect church name. Can I just say that? Could we start a church that's labeled The Hole? Come sit with us in the hole. Wouldn't that be amazing? I'm sorry. That's a beautiful picture.
Is it going to be like a literal bunker underground? Like what sort of the aesthetic?
You're now in my part of the country. Like that would be absolutely welcome. I'm sure there would be people who would sign up immediately.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We can sit in the hole. We can come out of the hole. We're going to go in and out.
Yes. Right.
And
Right.
to settle in, we're going to revisit the whole, like
Yes.
we are going to keep
Yes.
revisiting. And that is not an indicator of regression. It's just what the process looks like.
Yes.
And I also like to share with people, sometimes action looks like a break. Sometimes action actually is a lack of activity.
Yeah.
It's inactivity.
Yeah.
And so allowing ourselves those breaks, allowing this to take, honestly, way longer than we think it's going to, and way longer than we hope it's going to. But the really good news is progress is being made along the way.
Yes.
And so I hope that is encouraging, but it's going to take a long time. I've had a few examples where someone has made a comment to me and bless them. They're like, I want to be healed like you. And I was like, oh, don't make me the goal. Like I'm going to be healing until I die.
Yeah.
And I know that that's true. And I remember having that realization a handful of years back of like, this is in a very real way when a family member had reached out to me. I was like, this is always going to be an element of my life. And it's not all of my life, but there's an integration that has happened. And that was something I didn't know was needed until I actually lived it. And I got to see, okay, this was separated from me for a period of time. Like I was in it and then I kind of separated it from me and I was taking a look at it and going and not in a disconnected way, but in okay, this is an element of, and then I went to, okay, this doesn't have to be compartmentalized anymore. Like this is
Yes.
integrated into my wholeness and fullness as an individual made in the image of God. And it is woven into my story. And it is a significant part. It is not the only part. And I get to share it as I choose to share it. And I get to leave it out when I choose to leave it out. I choose to leave it out when I meet parents at my son's school. Although, side note, my son, he doesn't know what I actually do. His father, my husband, has told him that mama helps people. I'm like, well, that's sweet. I was like, I hope that is the hope, is that it's helping people. And so he told the librarian at his new school, the name of the organization mama works with. And she immediately hopped on her phone in front of him and Googled it and brought it up and said that she was going to watch the videos. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. I was like, that is not what I want to share at the onset. Like, this is what, oh yeah, go learn about my life.
Yeah.
And so to a degree, I get to choose, and I get to not choose because now my son remembers the name of the organization. He's at that age. So some people know that I prefer not know, but
We'll fix that today. We'll teach them that mama sits in holes.
mama sits in holes. Just tell people she sits in holes and you're not going to find her on the internet. But again, I can introduce myself and just say I work with a nonprofit. Like I get to choose when I'm going to share more, when I'm not going to share more. And then even if I share the kind of work I do, and someone's like, oh, how'd you get into that? Just, I realized it was a really significant issue. It was a really prevalent topic. And that might just be where I want to start with someone because it's new, or I don't want to reflect on that part of my life that day. And that again is an example of sense of agency. So I think again, for those loved ones who are coming alongside, just letting that be in progress for people, someone is seeking the Lord is faithful. We can be less worried about the timeline.
Yes.
We don't have to be so worried. And I say that because there is genuine concern, real concern of, oh my goodness, this person's going to turn away from God. They will also prayerfully come back if they do. And us being forceful about what that journey needs to look like is going to do the opposite. Like we need to just let people be. It's also disrespecting theirs. Again, they have free will.
Yes.
They need to have free will.
Yes.
And so allowing people that and encouraging them to go on whatever that is going to need to look like. And maybe there's times where we're like, gosh, I feel a sense of caution for something. We can share that in a loving, caring, compassionate way. And then we need to respect that they are going to make those choices. And something that really mattered to me as a survivor is that ultimately those who robbed so much from me already, that they not, even after death, continue to get to rob from me. Like I'm going to get to choose. And that means that I am going to turn toward all of these really hard, really ugly, really evil things. And I'm going to take a look at what's true and what's not true, and who did what, and where the accountability actually goes, because I do want to actually get to choose. And if I don't do that, then I'm just going to be responding in some way to the harm that was caused. And I don't want to continue to do that in my life. I want to take that back. And so that is an example of what taking it back has looked like for me. But it also looked like people being really worried for me at times.
Yeah.
And I want everyone who is worried to know that it's going to be okay if that person is seeking the Lord's also. I mean, honestly, was I seeking the Lord or was he seeking me? I mean, that's a whole theological conversation we're not going to have today, or you can comment if you want to.
No. I'm like, yes.
But he showed up, and then I decided to show up, and we show up together, and it's been just fine. And so I want to alleviate that from anyone if I can. But any further thoughts on things for loved ones, for the church at large, as they're watching this? What should they consider as they're supporting?
I would go just back to and this is, maybe vocabulary and words, but what you're talking about with integration too is a process over time. Just like you said, it's like there was a time where you were separated from it. Then there was a time you objectively viewed it all, and then you were able to integrate it. That's all process, and that takes time. And sometimes for some people that takes years, sometimes decades, and identifying what that is. And so being patient and present and caring, whatever that looks like for that person during that time, those loved ones just, know that they're there with you walking. I often say, like, I'm honored to walk alongside someone.
Yeah, that you were invited into that epic, a sacred space,
Yes.
because that's so trusting and that's such a beautiful moment in their life that they'll reflect on regularly.
Yes.
And that you've been invited to be there
Yes.
in that headspace. Something that I think is important too is that it's okay to spend time as a caregiver of somebody who's been through this, remarking and meditating on the impact of that secondary trauma.
Yes.
So things that we would talk about regularly amongst like professionals is like the fact that there really is a thing that's secondary trauma of hearing about your loved one having gone through this. And the impact of that on your nervous system is worth focusing on as well. And it's not, that reality is not taking from your loved one's story. We want to be discerning about how we walk that out, but like the victimization of the family members who are having to live now with that reality of their precious child or their spouse, and that impact should not be minimized either. And it's okay to seek help for that as well.
Yeah, and you don't have to sit in the hole 100% of the time.
Right. You don't have to, you do not have to suddenly become everything to that person. Like that's not, you can just be you.
Yes. Yeah, because otherwise we wear out. For those who are hurting right now, what do you hope they know as they make decisions as to their next steps? What do you want them to know?
You're not alone. People do care about you. People have been there, maybe not in your specific situation, but have definitely been, I'm going to use the hole again, have definitely been in the hole, you know, and there are people that like us who want to come alongside you and help you as you process through those things.
Yeah. It's okay for Christians to be angry. It'd be something that like, that's okay. We have to be careful about how we process our anger. We want to make sure it's constructive and healthy and doesn't do damage to other human beings or make the issue worse. But sometimes if the natural results of your experience is anger, which it regularly is, you are not sinning more by experiencing that anger or desiring to vent the injustice. And so like doing things like moving your body in a way that's not going to damage it. But like, I love like boxing ring type scenarios where you've got your bag and you're putting a lot of your anger into that moment. Like that's beautiful and welcome. And you're not less of a Christian because you're experiencing anger. And I feel like I see that as kind of like this unspoken norm. Like anger is this emotion that is inaccessible to Christians in these environments. And that is not the case. And I would love to remind, like, it's okay. And you can express it. Just make sure it's in a healthy and, God-directed way. Yeah.
And I want people to know that if there's anything that feels unavailable to you that you wish was available to you, like if you wish you could read the Bible or go to church, like we had just talked about, or if you wish that you could just feel safe in any relationship, you're like, gosh, I wish I could feel some sort of depth of connection and have that be safe and available to me. And maybe that doesn't feel like it's a possibility right now. Whatever it may be, I had hit different points in my story where I thought, I guess I just have to accept that I'm not going to have this. It's not going to work. And then it changed. So please keep that in mind. It may not be available to you right now because of what's going on in your body and what you're working through, whether it's intellectually, emotionally, and or physiologically. That doesn't mean that it's going to stay there. And so happy for you to borrow the hope.
Yes.
Like we talked about a little bit earlier, like you can borrow that. It does move. The needle continues to move. And then last question for our conversation today. What considerations do you hope churches lean into as they're watching the recent exposures play out?
I hope, and I've seen a little bit of this already, but I hope that churches in general will take it very seriously when someone comes to them and says, I've been spiritually abused, or maybe they can't even put that label on it, but they come and they say, here's the situation that just occurred. Maybe the people in leadership can say, ooh, I think that's spiritual abuse. We need to talk that through a little bit more.
Yeah, I've been on church staff before in somewhat of an administrative position, so I can feel it. Like, okay, like the first thought is like, all right, so what do we do to make our church a safe church, and how do we, like, what are all the do things? Like I feel that just erupt immediately, and we don't have a perfect protocol about how to do the things to make this happen, and I'm not sure that will ever really be something we can identify fully or exhaustively, but something that would be really helpful, I think, is trauma informed, learning what trauma informed means and the type of environment. So, like, learning our sheep better as leaders, right? So, like, we're shepherds. We are supposed to have a knowledge of our sheep. And if you do have a congregation of folks who have been through spiritual abuse, it is absolutely prudent and useful to actually know what that means. Like, what does a trauma-informed message look like? It doesn't mean we're augmenting everything. It doesn't mean we're automatically running and turning everything. We don't need to start a therapy center in our church tomorrow. Like, that's not where we're going with this. It's more of an awareness of, like, what do your sheep need? And I think you guys will agree with me. I think there are a lot more spiritual abuse victims out there than we realize in droves. The idea that you would assume that you have spiritual abuse victims in pretty large numbers in your church right now, whether they decide to tell their stories or not, is prudent.
Yeah.
So really kind of lean into that direction in your leadership conference material, right? In your, how are we going to train our staff? Like, it is prudent to go there in your headspace based on what we're seeing. So if you do want some constructive direction, having some type of trauma-informed training for your staff, having training about, like, how do you report, right? These things. What does it look like to get the third party? So, like, the cops involved in something. Like, what does that look like? How best can you do that in your community? Is deeply prudent.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I think once a church knows that this exists, there are some responsibilities to, and I think it's remiss if they don't then look into having spiritual abuse related policies. I know an organization that actually helps write those that I can refer people to. I think ensuring that, yes, the staff is trained, and also let's equip the congregation.
Yes.
I want to see the congregation get equipped to be able to recognize it, because then we're all working together. We're all working together to make sure this is a safe environment for people. And we can welcome them into that in a variety of ways. And one of it is just making sure that we're talking about it. So, like, from the pulpit, let's do a sermon on this. Like, let's talk about it. Let's educate it. Let's do a workshop one evening, whatever it looks like. We offer those if someone's looking for one, like, or go somewhere else, wherever you go, just figure it out, get yourself resourced, become more educated. And also, something I've heard come up with pastors is, this idea that it's not in their church. I'm like, it probably is. Now, maybe hopefully it hasn't happened in your church. That's quite possible that it hasn't occurred in your church, but people like me and others, we walk into those churches at some point in time. And now, okay, how are you able to have some framework for what I've gone through? Is there some sensitivity being shown, even if I haven't shared my story? So where can we continue to learn and grow? And also, a lot of me's are not walking into the church. And so if you're looking at how you're serving the local community, what would be available that currently isn't, because you don't know. And so that to me is something to consider too. Like, how are you then going out? And I mean, there was a point in time where I asked a pastor, like, I can't come into the church right now, but I would love to take communion with someone. I'm like, I know I'm not the typical profile of someone who would need somebody to come into their home and take communion with them, but gosh, that would have been so cool. Because again, there was a genuine inability to participate. And like, how are we able to then meet with people in the way that they can? So I agree. Thank you so much. This was hopefully a wonderful conversation for others. I know I enjoyed it.
Loved it.
Okay. So I already have plans for more of these conversations, but I won't tell the ladies that yet. We'll talk about it, but I hope that we're able to do this again. I love being able to meet with this team. It is not easy to find people to grow this team with, because everyone they have to meet 3 criteria. Someone has to have biblical and theological studies training. Someone has to be trained as a support professional, and they have to have a lived experience. And in addition to that is have a lived experience and be in a place where this is healthy and safe for them to companion alongside someone else. So I'm incredibly grateful for those that I get to do this with. For any of you who is like, I would love more information, please reach out. beEmboldened.com is where you can get connected to any of our other social media platforms, the services that we offer. You can also email us at hello@beEmboldened.com. I hope that this conversation on cover-up culture and what it looks like and all the different angles that it can take, I hope that this serves you well. I'll see you soon.